Trading, at its core, is not an intellectual challenge but a psychological one. Long before a trader masters charts, indicators, or economic data, they must confront their own emotional tendencies. The foreign exchange market is an environment of constant uncertainty, where outcomes are never guaranteed and control is limited. This uncertainty activates deep emotional responses, and how a trader handles those responses ultimately determines success or failure far more than technical skill. Most traders enter the market believing the challenge lies in prediction. They search endlessly for better indicators, more precise entries, and more accurate forecasts. What they eventually discover, often painfully, is that prediction offers little protection against emotional decision-making. Even the best analysis collapses when fear, greed, or impatience overrides discipline. The market does not reward those who predict well, but those who execute consistently. Fear is usually the first emotion traders encounter. It appears early, often after the first few losses, and it shapes behavior in subtle ways. Traders hesitate to enter valid setups, exit profitable trades prematurely, or reduce position sizes inconsistently. Fear convinces the trader that avoiding discomfort is more important than following a plan. Over time, this avoidance quietly erodes confidence and consistency. Greed enters the picture just as quietly. It often arrives after a winning streak or a strong trade, whispering that more is possible if rules are bent slightly. Greed pushes traders to increase risk impulsively, hold trades longer than planned, or enter marginal setups out of excitement. While fear limits action, greed distorts judgment. Both emotions pull traders away from structured execution. The foreign exchange market amplifies these emotional extremes because it is fast, liquid, and always accessible. There is always another candle forming, another opportunity appearing, another reason to act. This constant availability creates psychological pressure to participate, even when no clear edge exists. Many traders confuse activity with productivity, not realizing that overtrading is one of the fastest paths to inconsistency. Discipline in trading is not a personality trait, but a learned behavior. It is built through repetition, structure, and self-awareness. Disciplined traders do not rely on how they feel in the moment. They rely on predefined rules that guide decision-making regardless of emotional state. These rules act as anchors, preventing impulsive reactions when pressure rises. Losses play a critical role in shaping trading psychology. Every trader experiences them, but not every trader learns from them. When losses are seen as personal failures, they trigger emotional responses like frustration, self-doubt, and revenge trading. When losses are viewed as part of probability, they become data points rather than emotional events. This shift in perception is a turning point in a trader's development. One of the most damaging psychological habits is the need to be right. Traders often attach their self-worth to their analysis, making it difficult to accept when the market moves against them. This attachment leads to holding losing trades longer than planned or avoiding exits entirely. Profitable traders detach their identity from individual outcomes and focus on process over ego. Risk management is often misunderstood as a technical concept, but it is deeply psychological. Proper risk sizing limits emotional exposure. When risk is too large, fear and greed intensify, making rational decision-making nearly impossible. When risk is controlled, the trader can remain calm, objective, and focused on execution rather than outcome. Patience is one of the rarest psychological skills in trading. The market does not offer opportunities on demand, yet many traders feel compelled to act constantly. This compulsion often stems from discomfort with waiting rather than genuine opportunity. Learning to sit out of the market is a sign of maturity, not weakness. The market rewards those who wait for confirmation and punishes those who chase movement. Chasing price is an emotional response driven by fear of missing out. It usually leads to poor entries and unnecessary losses. Traders who develop patience allow setups to come to them, reducing emotional stress and improving consistency. Confidence in trading should not come from winning trades, but from rule following. Winning streaks can inflate ego and lead to complacency, while losses can damage confidence if rules are ignored. True confidence is built when a trader knows they followed their plan precisely, regardless of the result. This type of confidence is stable and resilient. Even the most disciplined traders encounter moments of doubt, where the mind questions strategy, timing, and judgment. These moments are not weaknesses. They are natural responses to the uncertainty inherent in the markets. What separates successful traders is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to acknowledge it without allowing it to dictate action. Doubt, when recognized and managed, becomes a signal to revisit the plan, review risk, and ensure alignment with long-term objectives. Traders often underestimate the subtle influence of cognitive biases. Confirmation bias, the tendency to seek information that supports existing beliefs, can lead to overconfidence and ignored warning signs. Loss aversion, the disproportionate pain of losses compared to the pleasure of gains, drives premature exits and revenge trading. Awareness of these biases allows traders to structure their decisions in a way that mitigates their effects, replacing instinctive reactions with deliberate process. The market is a mirror of internal states. When a trader is anxious, impatient, or overconfident, the market seems unpredictable and hostile. When a trader is calm, patient, and focused, the same market appears clear, offering defined edges and opportunities. This mirroring is not coincidence. It reflects the interaction between perception and reality, emphasizing that emotional mastery is inseparable from market performance. Momentum can be seductive. When a trend forms, it triggers a sense of inevitability, encouraging the trader to add risk or abandon strategy. Yet momentum is neutral. It is the interpretation and response of the trader that determines outcome. Successful traders ride momentum with discipline, knowing when to participate and when to step aside, guided not by emotion, but by rules and objective signals. The concept of edge is deeply psychological. An edge is not simply a statistical advantage, it is a state of confidence derived from repeated verified process. Edge without discipline is meaningless, because even the best probabilities fail when rules are ignored. Edge without patience is wasted, because the market will not always present the setup. Psychological readiness ensures the edge is executed consistently. Market noise tests. Emotional fortitude. Minor fluctuations, fake-outs, and reversals often provoke premature action. The untrained mind interprets every movement as a signal, reacting impulsively. The trained mind, however, distinguishes between noise and opportunity, using mental filters cultivated through experience, journaling, and observation. This filtering is what separates reactive participants from proactive, consistent traders. Overtrading is often a symptom of emotional misalignment rather than strategy failure. Traders overtrade to chase excitement, validate ego, or compensate for earlier losses. These trades are rarely profitable because they originate from impulse, not edge. Recognizing the psychological source of overtrading is essential. Addressing emotion prevents repeated mistakes more effectively than adjusting strategy alone. The interplay between fear and greed is relentless. One feeds the other, creating cycles of overreaction and hesitation. Traders who master this dynamic do so by acknowledging both forces without attachment. They set boundaries for risk, define profit targets, and follow execution rules, allowing neither fear nor greed to dictate behavior. This equilibrium is a hallmark of professional psychological control. Losses must be normalized, not vilified. Viewing losses as lessons rather than failures changes the mental landscape. Traders who internalize this perspective develop resilience, the ability to recover quickly, and a tolerance for uncertainty. Resilience is not built by avoiding losses, but by facing them with clarity, analyzing them objectively, and using them to reinforce discipline. Profit-taking is equally psychological. Many traders allow greed to delay exits, waiting for perfection that rarely exists. Others exit too early, surrendering potential gains to fear. The balance comes from defining criteria in advance, trusting signals rather than emotion, and accepting that no trade will ever be perfect. Mastery is measured not by maximum gain on a single trade, but by consistent rule-based execution over time. The market is indifferent to effort. Time spent watching charts does not equate to skill or results. Traders often fall into the trap of equating busyness with competence, believing that constant monitoring guarantees success. True competence emerges when observation is purposeful, analysis is disciplined, and action is deliberate. Psychological clarity allows traders to recognize this distinction and avoid unnecessary stress. Overconfidence is a hidden danger. A string of wins can inflate perception of skill, encouraging larger positions, riskier trades, and deviation from strategy. Overconfidence amplifies vulnerability to losses because it bypasses critical reflection. Awareness of this risk leads disciplined traders to temper success with humility, treating each trade as an independent event rather than a continuation of past performance. Consistency requires detachment. Emotional attachment to outcomes clouds judgment, leading to impulsive reactions when the market deviates from expectation. Traders who detach maintain focus on execution rather than results, treating every trade as an experiment in process adherence. This mindset allows learning to accumulate while emotions remain balanced. Trading is a long-term psychological endeavor. Quick wins may validate ego temporarily, but sustainable results depend on incremental development of self-control, discipline, and strategic patience. Every trade is a microcosm of broader behavior patterns. By observing reactions, refining processes, and reinforcing mental habits, traders cultivate the psychological infrastructure required for enduring success. The concept of expectancy is both technical and psychological. Knowing that a system has a positive expectancy provides comfort during drawdowns. This comfort is psychological, reducing fear and allowing adherence to rules even when the market seems contrary. Traders without psychological grounding often abandon systems prematurely, undermining statistical advantage with emotional impulses. Routine is underestimated in trading psychology. The human mind thrives on predictable structures. Pre-market preparation, defined checklists, journaling, and review sessions reduce decision fatigue and emotional drift. These routines anchor the mind, providing stability in a market that is inherently unstable. The discipline to follow routine is a psychological skill as much as a procedural one. Volatility is a test of temperament. High volatility magnifies emotion, triggering panic, impulsivity, or irrational risk-taking. Traders who thrive under volatility maintain structure, rely on risk management, and embrace uncertainty. They do not seek chaos, but they are mentally prepared to navigate it without losing alignment. Psychological preparedness is the buffer against volatility-induced mistakes. The illusion of control is pervasive. Traders often believe they can influence outcomes through effort, strategy tweaks, or observation. The reality is that control is limited to execution and risk parameters. Recognizing this limitation reduces anxiety, prevents overtrading, and fosters clarity. Acceptance of market autonomy is liberating. It shifts energy toward controllable factors rather than wasted speculation. Emotional fatigue accumulates subtly. Long trading sessions, repeated loss cycles, or intense monitoring can erode patience and clarity. Traders must recognize the signs of mental exhaustion and take corrective measures, breaks, journaling, or step-back reviews. Psychological stamina is maintained not by endless effort, but by managing cognitive load and energy reserves intelligently. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of trading psychology. Understanding triggers, emotional tendencies, and habitual reactions allows preemptive action. Self-awareness converts instinctive responses into conscious decisions. This metacognition is what differentiates reactive participants from proactive traders, and it becomes increasingly refined with experience and disciplined reflection. Preparation is a psychological strategy as much as it is technical. Traders who enter the market without a predefined plan are exposed to emotional hijacking at every price move. Preparing involves more than analyzing charts or indicators. It requires defining risk, entries, exits, and acceptable losses in advance. This preparation provides a mental framework that guides behavior under stress, turning uncertainty into structured action. Every trade is a lesson in emotional regulation. Markets are designed to provoke impulses, testing patience, discipline, and composure. Each price swing offers feedback on decision-making processes, revealing whether fear or greed dominates. The trader who observes these lessons without judgment gains insight, building resilience and improving execution over time. The market punishes impatience subtly but persistently. Those who act without waiting for confirmation often encounter whipsaws, small losses that accumulate into frustration. Patience is not passive, it is active observation combined with readiness to act when conditions align with the trader's edge. Mastery of patience requires trust in process rather than reliance on intuition or immediate reward. Psychological triggers often originate outside the market. Stress, sleep deprivation, or personal issues bleed into trading behavior. Traders may misinterpret these influences as market signals, making impulsive decisions under emotional duress. Recognizing the external origin of triggers allows the mind to separate personal life from market activity, preserving clarity and discipline. The market exposes illusionary control repeatedly. A trader may feel competent after consecutive wins, but volatility and randomness quickly dismantle that illusion. Accepting the market's independence fosters humility and psychological stability. Control lies in preparation, risk management, and adherence to rules, not in predicting or forcing outcomes. Observation without judgment is a profound psychological skill. Many traders watch charts with emotion attached to each candle or pattern. This attachment magnifies stress and clouds reasoning. Detachment allows a trader to observe objectively, collecting information without letting perception become reaction. The ability to separate observation from emotion enhances both decision-making and confidence. Overnight positions test emotional endurance. Holding trades when markets are closed, with uncertainty about external events, exposes fear and anticipation. Traders who are psychologically prepared to accept risk and understand probabilistic outcomes maintain composure. Emotional stability during these periods differentiates seasoned traders from reactive participants. The mind often creates narratives around trades, seeking to explain every movement. This storytelling can be seductive, convincing the trader that luck, fate, or external forces dictate outcomes. Awareness of narrative traps is essential. Professionals anchor judgment in rules and probabilities, not the illusions of causality created by emotional interpretation. Self-discipline is reinforced through repetition. Each successful execution of a plan, regardless of profit or loss, strengthens the neural pathways associated with process adherence. Over time, this repetition builds automaticity, reducing the influence of stress and emotion on decision-making. Psychological conditioning is cumulative, compounding small victories into sustained competence. The interplay between ego and market feedback is persistent. A wounded ego after a loss may provoke revenge trading, while an inflated ego after a win may prompt overconfidence. Traders must monitor ego continuously, separating self-worth from outcomes. Process-focused thinking neutralizes ego-driven reactions, creating space for consistent performance. Psychological resilience is forged in adversity. Large drawdowns, consecutive losses, or unexpected market events test emotional fortitude. Traders who internalize these experiences as learning opportunities rather than personal failure strengthen their ability to manage future stress. Resilience is not innate. It is developed through conscious reflection and disciplined practice. Risk perception is shaped by emotional state. Fear exaggerates potential loss, prompting overly conservative decisions, while greed underestimates risk, leading to reckless behavior. Psychological calibration, accurate perception of risk relative to probability, is developed through experience, journaling, and mindful reflection. Mastery of risk perception stabilizes behavior across market conditions. Discipline under pressure distinguishes amateur from professional traders. High volatility, sudden reversals, or unexpected news releases provoke emotional spikes. Traders who maintain rules and process during these moments preserve capital and confidence. Discipline is not passive obedience. It is active engagement with structure, ensuring consistency even under duress. The illusion of certainty is one of the market's greatest psychological traps. Traders often cling to expectations, forecasts, or technical signals as if they guarantee outcomes. Recognizing that certainty is unattainable reduces stress and mitigates impulsive behavior. Traders embrace probability, understanding that success comes from process, not prediction. The accumulation of small mistakes can be more damaging than isolated large losses. Minor deviations from strategy, such as premature exits, overtrading, or marginally increased risk, compound over time. Awareness of these micro-errors enables traders to correct behavior early, preventing small psychological lapses from escalating into significant performance issues. Confidence must be rooted in preparation, not outcome. Traders who measure success by adherence to rules rather than by profits develop stable confidence. This mindset reduces emotional swings, mitigates overreaction, and sustains consistency. Confidence becomes a tool, not a reward, guiding disciplined action in uncertain environments. The market is an emotional gym, constantly testing endurance, patience, and composure. Just as physical training strengthens muscles, repeated exposure to controlled risk strengthens psychological resilience. Traders who embrace the discipline of mental conditioning outperform those who rely on intuition alone, converting stress into structured opportunity. Awareness of mental fatigue is critical. Emotional depletion can manifest as hesitation, impulsivity, or tunnel vision. Recognizing fatigue allows for strategic pauses, journaling, or review sessions, preventing suboptimal trades. Psychological recovery is as important as technical preparation, ensuring clarity and process adherence remain intact. Expectation management shapes emotional responses. Traders who anticipate uncertainty, drawdowns, and variability approach the market with balance. Those who expect perfection encounter frustration and impulsivity. Realistic expectations align perception with probability, reducing emotional volatility and supporting consistent execution. The market's indifference is a lesson in humility. Every trader, regardless of skill, experience, or preparation, is subject to randomness, volatility, and uncertainty. Accepting this reality allows emotional energy to focus on controllable factors, risk, execution, and process, rather than resisting forces beyond influence. This acceptance is liberating and central to professional trading psychology. Emotional triggers are often subtle, creeping into decisions unnoticed until patterns of inconsistency emerge. Traders may rationalize impulsive actions with logic, believing they are adapting to market conditions, when in reality they are reacting to internal stressors. Developing acute self-awareness allows the trader to distinguish between genuine market signals and personal emotional cues, preventing reactive behaviors from dictating outcomes. The concept of mental stop-loss extends beyond money management. It applies to psychology. Just as traders set predefined risk limits, they must also define psychological boundaries. Knowing when to step back, disengage, or pause after a series of trades protects the mind from fatigue, emotional overextension, and cognitive distortion. This self-imposed discipline sustains long-term clarity and decision-making ability. Repetition breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds confidence. However, without reflective practice, repetition risks reinforcing bad habits. Journaling, debriefing, and deliberate analysis transform repetitive trading into intentional skill development. Psychological growth is contingent not on activity alone, but on conscious engagement with the outcomes, triggers, and thought patterns associated with each trade. The paradox of control manifests most sharply during drawdowns. Traders often attempt to force recovery through larger or more frequent trades, believing effort can overcome probability. In truth, attempting to impose control over inherently uncertain outcomes exacerbates losses and heightens stress. Acceptance of uncertainty, combined with disciplined execution, converts drawdowns from psychological crises into opportunities for learning and process reinforcement. Greed and fear operate in cycles, subtly influencing judgment across time frames. Traders who fail to recognize these cycles are repeatedly caught in reactive loops, chasing profits after wins, cutting losses after fear-driven hesitation. Awareness and proactive management of these cycles transform emotional impulses into deliberate, calculated responses, reinforcing discipline and consistency. Market volatility is a mirror for mental stability. Calm traders perceive opportunity where anxious traders perceive chaos. This is not mere perception bias. It is the direct influence of emotional regulation on decision quality. Developing psychological equilibrium allows the trader to navigate turbulence with objectivity, converting volatility into a structured environment for edge execution rather than a trigger for reactionary behavior. The role of intuition in trading is often misunderstood. True intuition is an emergent property of disciplined practice, reflective observation, and cumulative experience. It is not a mystical force, but a refined pattern recognition, shaped by repeated exposure to probabilistic outcomes. Emotional noise distorts intuition. Only a grounded, disciplined mind can translate it into consistent advantage. Patience is reinforced through experience, but requires conscious cultivation. It is tempting to act on incomplete information or perceived opportunity. But true patience involves waiting for conditions that align precisely with one's edge. This is not passive waiting. It is active readiness, continuous observation, and disciplined preparation, ensuring action occurs only when probability and process converge. The market is a feedback system, constantly revealing both strengths and weaknesses in execution. Traders who respond defensively to negative feedback amplify emotional volatility, while those who approach it analytically convert it into actionable insight. Developing the capacity to accept, evaluate, and learn from feedback is a cornerstone of resilient trading psychology. Overconfidence emerges most insidiously after streaks of small wins. Traders may begin to override rules, interpret signals subjectively, or take larger risks, believing prior success guarantees future outcomes. Recognizing this tendency and maintaining strict adherence to predefined parameters protects both capital and psychology, preserving long-term consistency and resilience. Decision-making under uncertainty is inherently stressful. The mind instinctively seeks certainty, often interpreting incomplete data as signals for immediate action. Psychological training involves embracing uncertainty, developing comfort with ambiguity, and focusing on process rather than outcome. Mastery lies not in knowing the future, but in executing consistently within probabilistic frameworks. The interplay between short-term outcomes and long-term goals tests psychological endurance. Traders frequently allow immediate results to overshadow process adherence, reacting emotionally to isolated wins or losses. Maintaining focus on cumulative performance and process integrity stabilizes emotion and prevents transient outcomes from disrupting strategic execution. Self-discipline strengthens through proactive structure. Predefined routines, risk limits, and execution rules function as scaffolding for the mind under stress. They reduce cognitive load, minimize emotional deviation, and anchor decision-making. Discipline becomes a habit, automatic and reliable, rather than a fragile response reliant on willpower alone. Emotional detachment is not indifference, it is clarity. Traders who distance themselves from ego and outcome preserve rationality in high-pressure moments. Detachment allows objective evaluation of setups, adherence to rules, and measured responses to market movements. This mindset transforms potentially destabilizing emotions into tools for disciplined action. Reinforcement of positive behavior is as important as correction of mistakes. Traders often focus disproportionately on losses, amplifying fear and anxiety. Recognizing and rewarding adherence to process, disciplined execution, and emotional control builds confidence, strengthens habits, and reinforces psychological stability over time. The psychological cost of overanalysis is underestimated. Excessive scrutiny of charts, news, and indicators creates analysis paralysis, delaying execution and inflating stress. Traders must balance information gathering with decisive action, trusting prepared strategies and probabilistic assessment rather than succumbing to endless mental loops. High-stakes environments magnify pre-existing psychological tendencies. Traders under pressure, whether due to large positions, significant account size, or external obligations, reveal patterns that are otherwise subtle. Recognizing these amplifications allows for proactive risk and emotion management, preserving both capital and mental equilibrium during critical periods. Expectation, misalignment is a frequent source of emotional turbulence. Traders who anticipate constant opportunity, perfect trades, or unbroken success encounter frustration and impulsivity. Aligning expectations with market reality, accepting variability, drawdowns, and the probabilistic nature of outcomes reduces stress, stabilizes emotion, and enhances long-term consistency. The mind seeks certainty in an inherently uncertain market. This quest manifests as obsessive monitoring, impulsive trades, or fixation on external opinions. Psychological mastery involves embracing the probabilistic nature of trading, relinquishing the illusion of control, and focusing energy on what is actually controllable: process, risk, and disciplined execution. Continuous reflection differentiates reactive traders from proactive professionals. Routine evaluation of trades, emotional responses, and decision-making patterns builds insight and anticipatory capacity. Reflection transforms experience into actionable knowledge, allowing emotional triggers to be identified and managed before they compromise future trades. Mental resilience is forged through repeated exposure to uncertainty and controlled risk. Traders who seek immediate comfort or protection often avoid necessary challenges, limiting growth. True psychological development emerges when discomfort is approached deliberately, analyzed objectively, and integrated into future decision-making. Each controlled encounter with risk strengthens confidence, patience, and composure. Trading is fundamentally a discipline of self-mastery. Market conditions may shift unpredictably, but the internal environment, thoughts, emotions, reactions, remains within the trader's control. Mastery is measured not by predicting price movements, but by regulating one's own behavior under stress. Emotional stability becomes a decisive advantage over those who are swayed by external fluctuations. The practice of journaling is transformative. Recording trades, rationales, and emotional states provides a mirror into behavioral patterns. Over time, recurring triggers, biases, and decision habits are revealed. Awareness alone does not suffice. Disciplined review and corrective action are necessary to convert insight into sustainable psychological improvement. Emotional consistency is more valuable than individual wins. Traders often overemphasize short-term results, conflating luck or isolated outcomes with skill. Consistency, rooted in adherence to process and rules, produces cumulative advantage. Psychological stability ensures that performance is evaluated over meaningful time frames, minimizing the impact of transient emotions. Overreaction to volatility is a persistent challenge. Sudden price swings provoke instinctive responses, panic, impulsivity, or hasty risk-taking. Traders who respond with measured, process-driven actions turn volatility into opportunity rather than threat. Psychological preparedness allows the mind to perceive turbulence as information, not judgment, guiding decisions with clarity. The balance between risk and reward is inherently psychological. Traders must reconcile the potential for loss with the pursuit of opportunity. Emotional overvaluation of either side skews decision-making, prompting either excessive caution or reckless behavior. Structured risk assessment and defined execution criteria align emotional perception with probability, stabilizing behavior under uncertainty. Cognitive biases distort perception of both market and self. Anchoring, recency effect, and confirmation bias subtly influence judgment, often without conscious recognition. Awareness of these biases enables proactive countermeasures, such as rule-based decision frameworks and objective evaluation. Psychological clarity is maintained by acknowledging mental tendencies while adhering to disciplined processes. Trading routines anchor the mind. Pre-market preparation, defined checklists, and reflection rituals reduce decision fatigue and emotional drift. These routines convert stress into structure, ensuring consistency across varied market conditions. Discipline becomes habitual, freeing cognitive resources for strategic evaluation rather than reactionary impulses. The emotional cost of impatience is significant. Many traders act prematurely, misinterpreting minor price movements as opportunity. Patience is cultivated through deliberate restraint, readiness, and trust in probabilistic setups. By waiting for alignment with their edge, traders reduce emotional stress, improve execution quality, and avoid unnecessary losses. Adversity builds psychological resilience. Consecutive losses, unexpected market behavior, or challenging environments test mental fortitude. Traders who approach adversity analytically, detaching ego from outcomes, reinforce emotional endurance. Each challenging scenario becomes a lesson, strengthening the capacity for composed, disciplined response in future trades. The mind often constructs narratives to rationalize outcomes. These narratives can magnify fear, greed, or regret, distorting perception and decision-making. Recognizing these stories as mental constructs allows traders to maintain objectivity. Decisions rooted in reality, process, and probability, rather than narrative-driven emotion, yield consistent results. Confidence grounded in process, not outcome, is resilient. Traders who derive assurance from strict adherence to rules maintain composure during both winning and losing streaks. Outcome-based confidence fluctuates with chance and volatility, whereas process-based confidence stabilizes behavior, reduces emotional reactivity, and enhances long-term performance. The interplay of ego and market feedback demands vigilance. A bruised ego may provoke revenge trading, while inflated ego can encourage overexposure. Process-oriented thinking neutralizes these extremes, keeping behavior aligned with strategy. Emotional intelligence, combined with strict adherence to rules, prevents ego from compromising performance. Micro errors accumulate into macro impact. Small deviations, slightly premature exits, minor position, sizing inconsistencies, or minor rule violations compound over time, affecting capital and psychological stability. Awareness of these small lapses allows preemptive correction, preserving both financial and mental resilience. Repetition without reflection reinforces poor habits. Traders who execute routines mechanically without analytical review risk ingraining suboptimal behavior. Reflective practice transforms repetition into skill development, ensuring that experience enhances psychological mastery rather than reinforcing emotional weaknesses. Expectation alignment reduces psychological turbulence. Traders who anticipate variability, drawdowns, and uncertainty experience less emotional volatility. Misaligned expectations amplify fear, impatience, and impulsivity. Realistic anticipation of probabilistic outcomes harmonizes emotional responses with strategic objectives. The illusion of certainty is pervasive. Traders cling to forecasts, signals, or patterns as if they guarantee results. Acceptance of inherent uncertainty fosters calm, reduces overreaction, and reinforces adherence to risk management. Psychological equilibrium emerges from embracing probability rather than resisting unpredictability. High-pressure situations magnify existing tendencies. Large positions, tight time frames, or external stressors reveal latent biases, impulsivity, or emotional weaknesses. Awareness of these amplifications allows proactive adjustment, preserving capital, process adherence, and mental composure during critical periods. Reflection converts experience into insight. Routine debriefing of trades, emotional states, and decision-making patterns identifies triggers, biases, and recurring mistakes. Proactive correction transforms knowledge into durable psychological skill. Without reflection, experience is wasted, leaving emotional tendencies unaddressed and inconsistent behavior unchecked. The long-term trader understands that emotional mastery is iterative. There is no end point where emotion ceases to influence decisions. Rather, the mind becomes increasingly adept at recognition, regulation, and adaptation. Progress is measured in reduced reactionary behavior, sustained adherence to process, and cumulative psychological resilience. Traders often underestimate the cumulative effect of small psychological improvements. Each instance of restraint, disciplined execution, and emotional regulation compounds over time, gradually transforming behavior. Success is rarely dramatic. It is the quiet, incremental refinement of decision-making and mindset that produces enduring results. Recognizing the power of compounding in psychology is as important as understanding compounding in finance. Emotional calibration is an ongoing process. Market conditions, personal circumstances, and internal states shift constantly, requiring continuous adjustment. Traders must develop the capacity to monitor their own mental equilibrium, identifying deviations from optimal focus, patience, and composure, and correcting them before they influence decisions. This vigilance is both proactive and preventive. The mind interprets uncertainty in diverse ways. Some traders perceive it as threat, others as opportunity. The response is dictated by preparation, past experience, and psychological conditioning. By cultivating a mindset that embraces uncertainty as a natural and manageable aspect of trading, the professional trader converts potential stress into structured decision-making advantage. Risk management is inseparable from psychology. Traders who ignore the emotional consequences of position sizing, leverage, and stop-loss placement expose themselves to fear, greed, and impulsivity. Proper risk calibration stabilizes emotion, allowing consistent execution even during adverse conditions. Managing risk is as much about protecting the mind as it is about protecting capital. Patience is reinforced by process adherence. Traders who consistently follow rules and wait for ideal conditions experience less emotional turbulence and higher quality entries. Waiting is not passive. It is active alignment with strategy and probability. Over time, patience becomes instinctive, reducing reactive impulses and improving overall psychological stability. Confidence develops from repeated adherence to process under varying conditions. Traders who focus on outcome-based validation are vulnerable to emotional swings. Process-based confidence, anchored in consistent execution and disciplined decision-making, creates resilience. Even during drawdowns, the mind remains composed because it trusts the integrity of the process rather than the whims of chance. Losses are reframed as learning rather than failure. Emotional reactions to loss, frustration, regret, or revenge impulses can destabilize behavior. Viewing losses as data points and feedback allows the trader to extract insight, refine strategy, and reinforce discipline. This reframing transforms adverse events into opportunities for psychological growth. High volatility periods test emotional endurance. Sudden spikes, unexpected news, and rapid price movements provoke instinctive responses. Traders who maintain structured processes, defined risk limits, and mental clarity navigate volatility without panic. Psychological preparedness converts these periods from stress-inducing threats into arenas for disciplined execution. Overtrading is symptomatic of emotional misalignment rather than strategy failure. Impulse-driven trades often arise from boredom, anxiety, or ego. Recognizing the underlying psychological source allows the trader to correct behavior, prioritizing process over activity. Consistency emerges not from effort alone, but from alignment of mind, risk, and execution. Self-awareness is the foundation of sustainable trading. Understanding emotional triggers, habitual responses, and biases enables proactive management of behavior. Without self-awareness, mistakes repeat, and emotional turbulence persists. Cultivating reflective practice, journaling, and honest assessment builds the internal framework for consistent performance. Decision-making is strengthened through probabilistic thinking. Traders who accept that outcomes are uncertain and influenced by chance are less prone to emotional overreaction. Probability-based reasoning tempers fear, tempers greed, and supports disciplined execution, ensuring that decisions are informed rather than reactionary. The market is an objective teacher. Each trade, win or loss, provides feedback on decision-making quality, emotional regulation, and process adherence. Traders who embrace this feedback, analyze it objectively, and apply insights systematically develop both skill and psychological resilience, converting experience into measurable improvement. Detachment from outcome is essential. Emotional attachment clouds judgment, prolongs losing trades, and fosters impulsive behavior. Professionals focus on process adherence, trusting that consistent application of strategy will yield results over time. Detachment allows the mind to remain clear, objective, and resilient in the face of inevitable variability. Psychological endurance is developed through repeated exposure to stressors in a controlled manner. Traders who confront discomfort, waiting for setups, accepting losses, and managing risk, strengthen mental resilience. Each encounter with emotional challenge reinforces composure, discipline, and the capacity for clear decision-making under pressure. Cognitive biases subtly influence perception and execution. Recognizing tendencies such as confirmation bias, recency effect, and loss aversion enables structured countermeasures. Awareness alone is insufficient. Active implementation of rules, journaling, and review ensures that psychological distortions do not compromise execution or consistency. Emotional intelligence is a critical trading skill. Understanding one's own responses, the triggers of impulsivity, and the mechanisms of stress allows for proactive regulation. Traders who cultivate emotional intelligence navigate both external market fluctuations and internal turbulence with composure, clarity, and consistency. Routines anchor performance under pressure. Pre-market preparation, post-trade reflection, and structured journaling reduce decision fatigue and emotional deviation. Habitual discipline transforms effortful decision-making into automatic, consistent behavior, preserving mental energy for strategic evaluation rather than reactive impulses. The interplay of ego, fear, and greed is constant. Awareness of these forces enables proactive mitigation. Traders who monitor ego after wins, temper fear during losses, and control greed during profitable streaks maintain equilibrium. Psychological vigilance prevents emotional dominance from undermining consistent, process-driven execution. Reflection converts experience into wisdom. Reviewing trades, assessing emotional states, and identifying recurring patterns strengthens insight and anticipatory capacity. Knowledge without reflection fails to influence behavior. Disciplined reflection transforms insight into actionable psychological skill, reinforcing long-term mastery. Mastery of trading psychology is iterative and ongoing. There is no end point. Emotional challenges, market variability, and personal stressors evolve continuously. Traders who commit to ongoing self-awareness, process adherence, and disciplined reflection develop a resilient, adaptable mind capable of sustained, consistent performance across market conditions. Trading is not merely a technical or analytical endeavor, it is a journey of self-mastery. The market will always test patience, discipline, and composure. Those who succeed are not necessarily the smartest or most knowledgeable, but the most psychologically prepared. Emotional regulation, self-awareness, reflection, and adherence to process form the invisible architecture that supports sustainable trading. By mastering the mind, a trader converts the inherent uncertainty of the FX market into a structured environment for opportunity, growth, and long-term success. Emotional reactions often occur fastest when uncertainty is highest. Sudden market moves, news releases, and volatility spikes test psychological stability. Traders who react emotionally during these moments often make decisions they later regret. Those who remain grounded in their plan maintain control even when the market becomes chaotic. The concept of control is central to trading psychology. Traders cannot control the market, price movement, or outcomes. The only control available is over risk, behavior, and execution. Accepting this reality reduces frustration and shifts focus inward where real improvement is possible. Many traders exhaust themselves emotionally by trying to force consistency through effort rather than alignment. They trade more, analyze harder, and monitor charts obsessively. This approach increases stress and reduces clarity. Consistency emerges not from effort alone, but from psychological alignment with uncertainty and risk. Trading eventually reveals patterns in behavior. Over time, traders notice recurring mistakes, emotional triggers, and reactions to wins and losses. These patterns are mirrors of internal habits. Awareness of these patterns is the first step toward meaningful psychological change. Journaling is one of the most effective tools for developing trading psychology. Recording not only trades, but thoughts and emotions creates insight into behavioral tendencies. This awareness allows traders to anticipate emotional responses and correct them before they influence decisions. The longer a trader stays in the market, the more they realize that simplicity often outperforms complexity. Complex systems create more decisions, and more decisions create more emotional exposure. Simplifying execution reduces psychological strain and improves consistency over time. Eventually, trading becomes less about excitement and more about routine. The trader stops seeking stimulation and starts valuing stability. This shift marks the transition from emotional participation to professional execution. Mental resilience is forged through repeated exposure to uncertainty and controlled risk. Traders who seek immediate comfort or protection often avoid necessary challenges, limiting growth. True psychological development emerges when discomfort is approached deliberately, analyzed objectively, and integrated into future decision-making. Trading is fundamentally a discipline of self-mastery. Market conditions may shift unpredictably, but the internal environment remains within the trader's control. Mastery is measured not by predicting price movements, but by regulating one's own behavior under stress. The market does not reward effort, intelligence, or intention. It rewards discipline, patience, and emotional control. Every trader eventually learns that the hardest opponent is not volatility, algorithms, or institutions, but the voice inside their own head. And this is where everything comes together. Because trading success is not built in moments of excitement, but in moments of restraint. Not when you enter the trade, but when you choose not to. Not when you win, but when you lose, and still follow your rules. That is where professionals are separated from gamblers. The trader who survives long enough, who reflects honestly, who controls risk relentlessly, and who respects uncertainty deeply, begins to operate on a different level. At that level, the market no longer feels like an enemy. It becomes a neutral environment, one that rewards consistency and punishes emotion with equal indifference. If you take one truth from this entire audiobook, let it be this. The market does not need to change for you to succeed. You do. Master your risk. Master your behavior. Master your mind. And if this message helped you, if it gave you clarity, perspective, or a deeper understanding of what trading really demands, then support the channel. Like the video, share it with a trader who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more deep, honest trading psychology content. This is not about hype. This is about longevity. This is about becoming the trader who lasts. And that journey starts with the mind.